honey.
Well, I'm Hun. I'm Hun.
I had a big swallow just as you said, honey.
Let's try it again.
No, it's fine. Let's just keep
fine.
going. Yeah.
But don't forget, I'm Hun.
Yes, I know. We've had several, for our 5-year anniversary episode, we've had several technical difficulties in getting this on tape.
It's the 5-year breakdown.
Yeah, first you couldn't record the audio in your studio for some reason.
I don't think everybody needs to go through what we've been
No,
through.
I do, because this is really important. This is how badly we want to get this episode out to people. We've tried several different ways, and then we spent about a week on our normal way, on our remote way, Riverside, trying to record it. And now we've gone to Zoom, and it looks like it's working.
Well, don't say that. It's just like LA traffic.
I can't jinx it.
No.
But I'm encouraged because I can hear you in real time, which wasn't the case even 10 minutes ago.
Oh my God, my feelings were getting hurt because you were stepping all over me in the conversation.
And my feelings were getting hurt because I would tee you up for an answer and you'd just be sitting there staring at the camera.
It's horrible. I mean, I can't imagine being on stage acting and it all going down like that.
Right?
Right. On. It'd be horrible.
No, it's I don't know if Mercury is in retrograde. I did see a meme that kind of indicated that it might be, but
even that, just so you know.
Yes. So
I believe in, well, I won't tell you what I believe in.
What I was, one of the many times we started to record this 5-year anniversary episode, I was talking about how we started the podcast 5 years ago. And what we were doing was we were recording it in these really beautiful sound studios the one at the W Hotel in Hollywood is gorgeous, right?
I still miss that place sometimes.
We got snacks.
I felt like a big deal.
Yeah. We would walk up through the W lobby and go into this buffed out recording studio. And
it was even more fun to bring our guest into the studio, right? Because they felt like a big deal. And I remember just the pride that I felt. But, it costs a lot of money to do that too.
We ordered room service when Major Williams came with his kids. Remember that? We got them pancakes and chicken nuggets.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
They were great.
And there was a fridge with drinks. Anyway, it was a real recording studio. It was our first experience.
Big soundboard.
Yeah.
Engineer. We had a producer in there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Shout out to Daniel Turek.
And Christina Barcy.
And Christina Barcy, who we call Barcy.
Mm-hmm.
She was our executive producer up until, really last year. And it's been quite the journey to start off with this really kind of posh way of starting a podcast, right? And to really then understand what it takes to get listeners and downloads and all that stuff. We didn't know any of that.
No, I think we just thought magically we would start a podcast and tell stories and we would get people to listen. And that's not the case.
Well, and the first episode we recorded was last week's episode, Rima Zaman.
Yep.
Right.
It's a beautifully recorded episode, by the way. I was just listening to it.
She reads in it, doesn't she?
She reads, but she talks like she's reading all the time.
Yes.
And it's a very sensitive subject. She talks about her rape.
Mm-hmm.
And the episode sort of reflects about not being seen for who she was, but as she appeared in the world and the dangers of that. And I was really touched by it again, because we've done almost 800 episodes. We're 760 episodes in.
Did that come out right? Was that my whistle?
No, there was no whistle there. I thought maybe the mic had gone dead again.
Wait,
honey, don't.
Okay.
You don't need to whistle.
Okay.
We've done a lot of episodes. And Rima was our very, very first interview.
Yeah, she was. And that was at that. No, she came to the Village Workspace.
She did. She came to the work. We have some great photos of that if you want to look online.
I mean, are there any bad photos of Rima?
I don't know. She doesn't put them out there if there are.
I've never seen one, and she's ethereally beautiful. She looks like she's been fabricated by something, not a real person. And And so I love that the episode was about like how most people only see that beauty and don't see the beauty within her.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was beautifully done, and it was a great only one kickoff.
Yeah.
It took a little interpretation and understanding for people to just see what the only one's concept was, because, like you said, most people are looking at the outside of things and not the inside. And
Right.
most of our stories ask that the listener take a step past what they observe and try to get a little bit deeper into the story about what they feel. And
Yeah.
so,
And then Laura House, who we released 2 weeks ago, was our first episode released, but our fourth interview.
yeah, I don't remember which number it was, but she was great. And, that being adopted story, and not like, I think the opening of the episode, she talks about looking down at her hands and not ever seeing another set of hands that look like hers.
Yeah.
We actually are friends with her, and we've had some experience since that first episode, and she has been reunited with her family,
Yeah.
her birth family.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she found out some things that were a surprise to her about her birth family, but she also said she finally heard her laugh, saw
Yeah.
her hands.
Yeah.
Um, it was,
Met her brother,
yeah,
her
I met
half
her brother.
brother.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She, I think, even moved there to their town during the pandemic, that area where her family was.
Yeah, I think that was the family that raised
Her
her.
birth family. I mean, her
Yeah.
birth family, right?
Yeah, yeah. But her adopted family. But it's all like intertwined now. And it's really a cool thing to have somebody speak so openly about it. And because you and I just we don't have that experience in our family.
No, we don't.
We don't have,
I'd always taken that for granted.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
you got your dad's eyes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
When I first saw your dad, hun, I was just like, what is this man doing with Scott's eyes? That,
He gave them to me.
yeah, it floored me. It absolutely floored me. So, should we talk a little bit about you and I and how we got together and then how we decided to make the podcast or why?
Yeah, sure. We can talk about whatever you'd like to, honey. This is our half an hour show today.
Our show. Okay, so for any of you who have been living under a rock, just kidding.
Mm.
Scott and I met in a rehab, a drug and alcohol treatment
Drug and
facility,
alcohol. Yeah, yeah.
in July of 2008. So almost 16 years ago.
And real quick, she walked in. I was the very next patient admitted. She was, you were 4'11" and I was 4'12".
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
They gave
Uh,
us all numbers.
uh, yeah, it was crazy, crazy story.
Yeah.
Then the first few hours of being there, I had said to myself, "What are you doing here?"
Mm-hmm.
And we went on to become very close friends. Um, we walked. We were just talking about this morning.
Yeah.
Being there together. You said my laugh made you feel safe and comfortable. Um, I realized you needed help a little bit at times, and became your custodian a little. Um,
Yes. Well, it
we
just,
never thought we'd be here 16 years later running a podcast,
no,
uh,
no.
having squabbles over Hun and Honey, and um, it's a remarkable journey. You guys need to read the book Stash if you want to find out more about it, Laura's memoir.
Well,
But
and that is actually one of the big reasons we started the podcast
yeah,
was because I was trying to create an author's platform. And it had been suggested to me to do a few things. One was to start a blog, which I didn't know much about blogs.
and you guys have to remember this was like 2016,
It was,
2017.
it was 2016. Yeah.
Blogs were kind of the deal. That was the way an author created an audience at the time.
Right. And then
You
also
did that.
I did that. I blogged every week for 2 years. And then the same person, this was an agent who was rejecting me,
Right.
said that I should try some storytelling. So I took a class on storytelling, which is telling a true memorized 5-minute story on a stage in front of an audience, and then you're judged and there's a winner. And so I did that.
You were so good, by the way. I have to tell you, you guys, I didn't know what a moth was. But we were like, mid 40s, and we had kind of stopped going to bars. We don't drink, and we had, going out to dinner and movie was our way of sort of, dating.
Yeah.
Uh, but I really enjoyed the time where you were doing the moth, because we would go and research moths, and we would see people perform,
Yes.
tell these stories live in front of an audience. And we'd be home by 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Pretty
It was
dope. Yeah.
great. It was great. And also great to just sit in an audience full of people who weren't on their phone and were just listening to the craft of storytelling.
Uh-huh.
That was kind of amazing, right?
It was. I found it to be, and the audience was so aware that if somebody had rehearsed or practiced too much, they weren't in. They
If it
were,
was pitchy, right? If it sounded like a pitch.
yeah. So even professionals were brought down to a certain level.
Hmm.
Anybody could step in, and if they had a story that was unique in any way, I think the audience really grabbed onto it and pulled for the storyteller. And you
Yeah.
you did really well at it. It was, I think, I know you worked so hard at it and you practiced so much at it, but you ended up winning a moth and then placing in the top 10, top seven of the regional moth finals for,
Right. The Grand Slam.
yeah, the Grand Slam.
Yeah.
And you learned a lot about storytelling in that, didn't you?
Oh, I did. I learned so much. It's really hard. Or it was hard for me anyway. You're right. I practice a lot, and um, it doesn't come naturally to me to stand on a stage. And where'd you go? There
Okay.
you go.
Just,
Okay.
you're good.
To stand on a stage, I'm not like, I'm not somebody who was ever going to be an actress, or, I'm not somebody who loves the spotlight. So that was a strange experience. But anyway, so the person who rejected me suggested I try storytelling. They also suggested I try podcasting. So at the same place I took the storytelling class, I took a podcasting class. And the funny thing is, and you might not remember it this way, was this podcasting class was 3 hours out of a Saturday for 5 consecutive Saturdays, and you were not happy.
I
I was
was gonna say,
leaving,
I sound angry. I feel angry already. Already
right?
listening. Uh-huh.
It was 3 hours of a Saturday afternoon. It was in Culver City, which is about, a half-hour drive.
I do remember that.
Yeah. And I had to leave there, go to the 3 hour class, and drive back. So I was really gone for 4 hours at least.
Well, and honestly, at that point, I just had no idea I was going to be involved. I just thought this
Right.
was your little thing you were doing, and it was going to help you. And I didn't foresee, what I'm doing now at that
No,
point.
no. And you and I were living together at that point. We had waited, we dated for 6 years before we moved in together. Which is, something that we just decided to do for ourselves, for our own our respective recoveries, and for our respective families.
For our
Like,
families, I think it was
yeah,
the bottom line. It became probably the most important thing we did for our families was I didn't come into your life and try to be a parent to your kids, and vice versa. We became attractions and allowed them to get to know us with curiosity. It
yeah,
took a lot of discipline. There were a lot of times I did not want that to be the agenda. I really wanted to live with you and be with you, but I accepted that Thursday night through or Friday night through Sunday was my time with you, and then we dated in between.
yeah,
That was 6 or 7 years, and then we moved in together at this time where you're like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to be an author, and these are all the things that are involved. And I was like, wow, that's a lot more than being in writing.
Well, and I wasn't 100% that I was going to be an author, but I thought,
Oh, you so
I,
badly wanted it though, hon.
yeah, but if I was going to be an author, this was the path,
Hmm.
right? It had been laid out for me. I didn't have to look anywhere else to see what the path was. She had basically laid it out for me. So, and not just an author, but a memoirist, which is different than a novelist. It's a different path for people who write novels. And so the idea would be to get people to know who I am so that they would want to then buy a book about my life, right?
Yeah, well, we didn't really, I don't think, understand the impacts of that building
Yeah.
get people to know who you are. And
Right.
That's
Right.
really where I think we felt like it was kind of I feel like it was kind of the heyday of podcasting. Like podcasting was really catching on. People were the buzzword, people were saying it, you'd be like, even if you hadn't heard one, somebody might be like, "Hey, have you heard a podcast?" And they'd be like, "Oh, yeah." And then you go look for one. It
Yeah.
it was that time in podcasting. So it felt like the right medium for you and I to get into. Um,
Well, and when I took that class, I had never listened to a podcast. It never occurred to me to listen to a podcast. And for homework in that class, we had to listen to podcasts. So I started to, and I think you had listened to a few already, but I
yeah,
hadn't listened to any.
but I wasn't lined into one. I wasn't hooked into it. It was just
Yeah.
another media source that, was entertaining, but it was attractive.
Yes. And so in December of 2018, it was suggested to me by someone who was in podcasting that I start a podcast, like in earnest. And I remember turning to you in bed that night and saying, if I do this, you'd have to produce it. Would you be willing to do that? And you said,
I don't know what a producer is,
right.
but for you, I'll do anything, honey. Right?
Yeah. And I was like, the best producers are people who keep like their rooms clean and organized.
Yeah, yeah. But and the caveat to that, the way I remember it is, I said, "Well, what do producers do?" And you said, "Producers do anything anybody else doesn't want to do, basically."
Right. Anything the talent doesn't want to do,
Which is
it
what
does.
it turned out to be.
Yes. So we met with a couple of people and we decided to go forward with this. And in January of 2019, the idea was born. Like, we had a name.
Can you give us a brief little backstory on where the idea came from? Because it's
Yeah.
important. Yeah, yeah.
But
Not a brief now.
yeah, no, but when I was in that class, that podcasting class, I'd written a viral article about being the only Black person at a 600-person retreat,
Which is a true story.
which was a true story. And when I started getting responses right away, 598 or something DMs like within 24 hours.
And at that
And
time, that was a lot, by the way. And
oh,
DMs, I mean, it's still a lot of
it's
DMs,
still a
right?
lot. Like I haven't done that since.
Right?
And, but a lot of those DMs and other messages that I got were hashtag the only one in the room. And my podcast teacher actually, shout out to Anna Scott. She's the one who said that might be a great title for your podcast project, which it was at that point. So the podcast project that I did for the class was called The Only One in the Room.
I remember when you pitched it to me.
Mm-hmm.
Call it The Only One in the Room.
Yeah. And so, then we went on, we had those meetings in January. We interviewed Rima,
Hmm.
who was last week's guest, re-release. She was our first interview. We weren't ready to interview anybody.
I remember how nervous I was throughout the whole first season and
Yeah.
second season.
Yeah,
I mean, every time we had a guest, I was like, "Oh my God!" And we had some pretty big names in the first couple of years,
we did. We
first
had,
seasons, I should say.
and some really powerful stories too.
John Cryer came on, Lisa
Yeah.
Joyner.
Yeah.
Um, who
He
else?
was season 4, John Cryer. We had Rebecca Gayheart Dane in the
Oh
first
yeah.
season.
Oh
We
my
had
God,
Holly
she was so
Robinson
nervous.
Peete,
Uh-huh.
Ariva Martin, who's you cannot turn on a TV without seeing Ariva reporting on
So,
some national legal matter.
mhm.
So proud of her.
Yeah, I mean, you had a lot of connections that brought these folks in, which was
Yes.
it was wonderful. It really kind of got us on the map. It made us look legit. It stoked the fire to learn.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the thing is when you're starting a podcast, what I was told or it was suggested to me to really just mine your friends, find out which of your friends who has like the most name recognition, or the most or the best name recognition or the most followers, and see if they'll agree to be one of your first guests. Because what we did with The Only One in the Room was a debt lift. We had no audience. We had no community, right?
No, we created. I think even the concept was a new idea. Like I remember spending a lot of time explaining what the only one in the room idea was. to people who hadn't got it. It was a little later when some things played out in the landscape of our country that I think that the only one of them really was easy to identify and people picked up on it with the George Floyd thing. But in the beginning, I remember it took some explaining and especially to the dominant culture.
I was about to say, because Black people got it.
Oh
Black
yeah,
people were like, and most people who, like other minorities got it.
marginalized.
Yeah.
Yeah, people understood it for sure.
hmm but yes, people of the dominant culture needed a little explaining at first, and then the cultural reckoning happened in the summer of 2020,
Right.
which also meant that we were shut down and could no longer use those beautiful studios we've been renting.
Right, and that was a nudge from a circumstantial nudge, I guess is what we could call it, because
Right.
we were in a fairly big house. I had a big office, and you were like, "Why don't we build a studio?" And I was like, okay, I don't know how to do that, but let's do it. And
I mean, you were into it at first. You didn't know what to do, but you were like, I think we can do this.
yeah, and remote style of interviewing was just becoming. Platforms for that were just being developed. Zoom was out, but it hadn't refined itself. It was the leading thing at the time. But Riverside FM came up, other programs came up.
Well, and for a while we just did audio. What was that platform that we used? Can you remember?
No, I can't remember. I know you're going to ask, but
It
we
was
didn't do audio for a long time. But the thing that happened, I think, for us, and we went crazy with it, is that all of a sudden we didn't have to pay for these studios, and we had all this extra money and resource to create content. And I as a producer kind of went crazy with like, let's do uh, different episodes in the week, and we did everything. We had 5 episodes a week going. Do you remember that?
I do. We had sorry,
On
my
my,
nose itches. I'm
no, no, we had
scratching my
on my
nose.
nightstand.
Yeah, we had our Now Normal.
Yep.
We had the Sunday edition.
Uh-huh.
Um, and we also, not only did we decide to produce more content, but we also realized if we went remote, we could get guests from anywhere. They didn't have to be in Los Angeles.
We sure did.
And that was a big, like, that was like, what? Now we could interview somebody in Mauritius, which we did. And I'll give $10 to the first person to email us on theonlyonepod@gmail.com with where in the world Mauritius is.
Where in the world is Mauritius?
I will send you $10 if
And
you could.
who was our guest from Mauritius?
Lucia.
And
Lucia.
why were they? You gave away the answer.
Oh, sorry. I thought you
Yeah,
were
yeah.
asking
Sorry.
me.
No, no, no. I was
Okay,
saying.
but yeah, what was the only one story?
And the real question is, why did she go to Mauritius?
Yeah, yeah. Why
So
did she?
we will entertain a $10 bet to anybody who can come with those answers.
Yeah, first person, not anybody.
Well, first person. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
have $10 for every person.
I'm
Maybe.
sure there'll be like 500 people
No,
emailing us
I got
Mauritius.
$5,000 out. Um,
But yeah, so we were able to interview people from anywhere, which was really great to expand our guest list.
yeah, and I want to touch base on one thing about an in-person versus a remote interview. Even though Laura and I are on a remote interview, she's downstairs, I'm upstairs. But one of the things as a producer that I really, and if you listen to some of our older episodes that we've always valued about a in-person interview is that we get to be in contact with the guest and we get to create a feeling and a vibe that I've always wanted to transmit through sound. And part of storytelling and podcasting, I think, is to create a feeling through the voice and through the way the story is told that connects you to it in a deeper level. One of the fears I always had was if we went to a remote style of interviewing that we would lose that opportunity. Um, I think I don't know if it does affect it or not, but I do always feel like I have a better experience when somebody's here at the house. We just had a guest, Jody Miller, come in, and she made all of us laughed so much and told just a really wonderful story about being an older adoptive parent. And I just think it would have lost some of that joy and being on a remote interview. So I just wanted to lay that out for you guys, that we do put a lot of thought and time into how we develop the sound and how we try to transmit the story and create an environment for the guests. So
No, for sure. And I mean, Jodi's a really good example because not only was she hilarious, which she is, she's a comedian, but she's also just like naturally funny. It wasn't like she was doing shtick for us.
oh no, she wasn't.
But also she talked about something really intimate and vulnerable. And in person, that connection like literally warms the room. Like you can feel the energy in the room getting warmer. And so as the primary interviewer, I do a lot of research, especially when we have remote interviews. And I know it's going to be something intimate and vulnerable, topic wise. I'll do a lot of research so that I can try to warm up that interview, you know,
Yeah, I know you do. And to make them feel safe
and to make them feel safe.
yeah,
Yeah.
you always let the guests know when they come in that, hey, if there's anything you don't want to talk about, I'm cool with it. And then you never go at a guest trying to find out something that nobody else knows, which I really respect a lot. And then
Yeah.
what that does typically is opens the guest up to tell you something. I mean, how many times have we heard a guest say, I've never told anybody this,
Right.
or I don't believe I've talked about this. And
Yeah.
it's definitely not coming at them aggressively or trying to trick them into it's usually by opening the door and making them feel like they can come and go as they please.
Yeah. I mean, we're not gotcha journalism. I'm never going to ambush one of our guests with a question that will make them uncomfortable. We want them to promote the episode too,
Oh, absolutely. We want them
right?
proud of
We
it.
we want them out there, saying this is one of my favorite interviews. So we don't ever want them to feel bad or regret coming on our show. Which I think a clean feed, that's the name of that first software.
The wheel was still spinning, but
The wheel was still spinning.
Cleanfeed might not even be in business anymore, but
But it was the audio that we switched to first, and it was a pretty clean feed, I think.
oh yeah, they did a great job. Barcy did all that research and brought them into us.
Yeah.
She also brought Riverside in,
Right.
when we were ready. And this one's actually done on Zoom. So Zoom's caught up quite a bit, I think. I still think their audio needs a little bit of love, but when you have troubles, go to Zoom.
Well, also, we have really good equipment. So our interviews on Zoom will sound better than somebody who's using their computer for sound,
I hope.
right? As their microphone and their speakers. So I think this will sound pretty good. I'm excited that we're actually doing this because this is a milestone, 5 years.
Yeah. Well, and we go to a lot of conventions for podcasts. The other thing I didn't think about when I got into podcasting was the community of podcasters that we would become part of.
Yes.
And that has been a real joy. But what I was going to say is one of the things I hear at these things often is that, if you're going to get into podcasting, you better plan on 5 to 7 years. And so we're just crossing the line. We're getting into a place where,
5 to 7 years to monetize.
To be making money at this. And, our podcast has done well over the years. It's supported itself. And there are times when, it's needed a little CPR, if you will.
And now it's payday, baby. Let's get that money.
Well, we're getting into that range, and so we're trying to figure it out. And part of that is, taking a look at all those excess expenses and
right,
trying to keep the quality and the production costs in an alignment. So
yeah.
you learn, you grow up with it. I think. Have you fallen in love with podcasting, honey? Do you love it?
So I think in order for me to love it, I would have to do it regardless of whether or not I needed it for my author's platform. And I don't think that's the case.
Oh, the crowd.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. But I really do enjoy it. I enjoy it a lot.
What do you enjoy?
Storytelling,
What do you enjoy the most?
The storytelling element. I love learning about people's stories. And the other thing I'll say is we're at the point now where, because I book the guests and I find the stories. And for a while there, we get a lot of pitches from publicists and from individuals. And for a while there, I was interviewing people because they had name recognition or a high follower count without necessarily having the story that was the right fit for us at that time. And I was trying to make the stories fit into, because,
into the brand.
And now I'm not doing that anymore. Like, every story that I go after is, in my opinion, a really great, important story told by a great storyteller. And we're able to do that now. We have the luxury of that because we get a lot of submissions, and I'm so grateful for those. And out of those submissions, I can curate, a season or, 2 seasons or 3 seasons of stories that I really love to tell. And that's my favorite part. My favorite part is finding that story and then allowing the guest to tell it on our show. I love that part.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the interaction with the guests and having the guests bring the story to life is my favorite part. The work part of it, like you saw me this morning, I was just inundated with like an endless list of things to do. I like getting that done, but I think I like the most when the stories are out and people come back and they say they love the show, they love the storytelling, they love. I think we're really cute. I think you and I back and forth is really, for some reason, it's something people really like. So I enjoy that. You and I, we operate alone a lot. So it's nice to bring that out into the world in a way that can be appreciated. And there are parts of podcasting I fall in love with. There are parts of it that I see as work. I don't need to do it, but I do keep doing it.
I've said to you many times, like, do you want to stop?
Yeah.
Want to quit?
I know you'll say, I do. Right now, I do. And then I'll wake up in the morning and be sitting at my desk organizing some stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, hon, whether you like it or not, and I know you do like it, but you're a really good producer.
Oh,
you have a good ear for what works and what doesn't. You have kind of a natural way of guiding people, and guiding people, during an interview, but also guiding me as I guide people in a way that doesn't sound like you're directing. It sounds like you're suggesting, and that way it's taken much better. And people are like, "Oh, that makes a lot of sense. I'll do that." And then you'll have a way of like assembling things that makes a lot of sense to the ear and to the listener. And those are all things really great producers do. And you have an eye on everything. Like, just to give you a little shout out here, every single thing besides booking the guest and doing the primary interview, you do. And that's a lot of work.
Thank you. But I cannot go through that without mentioning the fact that we've had a person, Gogo, Zoga, has been, I think, I don't know, a really important part of making this thing. She's grown with the show. Gogo came
intern.
She came on when we were doing the studio. She came on as an intern from
LMU.
LMU, yeah. She came in not knowing anything. She's gone on since. She's still working with us, but she has really been an important part of just sort of the guest list and handling all the submissions and everything that I did. This is all stuff I don't want to do. Like, literally, like, I don't want to touch. And she's leaned into all that stuff, really well. And now we have Kaylin Bean, who is our producer.
Hey, Kaylin.
I want to shout out Kaylin because Kaylin is now handling all again. I like you said, I know it when it sounds right for some reason. I'll know if it's off. But Kaylin's now putting things together with audio and video in a way that I could never do. I mean, it would literally be a full-time job to just.
Well, yeah. I mean, you don't know how to do some of the stuff that Kaylin does. But just really quickly, thank you for that, because I want to amend. When I say that you do everything else, I mean that you oversee everything else.
Right.
But Kaylin is our producer, and he comes in and he does the audio and the video, and he does the editing, and he does the show notes, which are those lovely things when you see us on your app and you want to read about the show and you want to click through some of the links. Kaylin does all that. And and there's more, but Kaylin does that. But you're the umbrella over everything, over me, over Kaylin, over Gogo, over Kaylin Green, who does an intern who's doing our Facebook.
It's like the worst thing for me to have Kalins, multiple
Two Kaylins.
Kalins.
We're the house of
But
two Kaylins.
yes, we are the House of Kalins.
Yes, and their names rhyme.
Yeah, they do. And they again, it is a team effort, and I appreciate that. I think you know, learning how to make a whole machine run is it's a lot for me, but I feel pretty good about it. I know when it's not right, and
Yeah.
sometimes things get by, but that's okay. I'm usually exhausted and just so many different things going on, and you know how I don't like multiple tasks at once, but I'm trying to get better at it. At 55 years old, I'm still like, okay, I'm challenged by this, so I need to keep trying it, and that's probably another thing that keeps the drive. Bless you. You blew her earplug out. You turned off your sound too. That's pretty funny. I think a sneeze would have been good. Um,
That would have been terrible.
uh, but yeah, I think the challenge, one of the things I've really asked of myself is to not try to not stop trying to learn. I've wanted to continue to try to learn at this point in my life instead of sort of being like, oh, I've done enough. I don't need,
Right.
I don't want to sort of retire my brain. And working with 30-year-olds and 20-year-olds and, trying to keep up with technology and social media and, all of these,
AI.
yeah, AI and podcasting platforms. And like, it really has, inspired me in a way that I just didn't see coming. I thought at 55, I'd be like, okay, retirement's coming soon, whatever that is.
Well, speaking of retiring, before we wrap up, where do you see the only one in the room in 5 more years? Like when we're celebrating our 10-year anniversary, what do you think it's going to look like?
Well, I would like to see us in our own studio, not
Hmm.
at our house. I'd like us to be really,
Have an offsite studio somewhere.
yeah, I'd like us to be flying in guests from around the world to tell their stories in person.
Ooh,
Uh,
flying them in, huh?
yeah, I like that idea of bringing people in to the studio when we can. We can do remote.
Hmm.
But I'd like to just see a solid flow of only one story still being told. I think the real purpose of telling an only one story is to allow people to other people to connect to the story in a way that they didn't see coming, right?
Yeah.
I felt like that. I acted like that. I understand that. I always think the craziest thing about the title, as soon as you tell somebody the title of the story, they begin to search for their own. Oh yeah, I know.
Hmm.
I've had this one experience, and I think just continuing to create that opportunity for people, A, to tell their story, and B, for people to connect to their story, so they know they're not the only ones in the world that have had an experience, that they don't feel isolated and alone. Um, what it looks like on the production side, I'm not sure, but I would love for it to be like a mid to upper level storytelling podcast that uses sound as a way to, also create imagery and feeling. So I don't,
Hmm.
I have a vision. I don't quite know how to get there, but I'm not giving up yet.
I heard that. I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. Let's go. 5 more years.
What
Five
about you
more
in five
years.
years? What about you in 5 years? Where do you see you in this podcast in 5 years?
If we're still doing this podcast in 5 years, I'm definitely down with the idea of an offsite studio and a team that is, running the, just the day to day of it and the social media and, keeping track of ads and, all the things all the balls that are in the air that we have to juggle, like have a team taking care of all that stuff.
Like you would show up for a shoot at a TV station. You walk in,
Yeah.
you do your thing, and then all that content just goes out and gets built and assembled.
And I'd like to interview guests like Michelle Obama, Brene Brown. I'd love to interview Elizabeth Gilbert and Cheryl Strayed because they're responsible for starting the podcast, being that I was at their retreat
Right.
in 2018 with 600 people and finding myself as the only Black one. I think it'd be really cool and full circle to have the two of them on the show so we could talk about that experience and where we've all grown from there. Like that's what I'd like to do.
Well, I think honestly, if you continue to keep writing and being an author and being published, that opportunity will come around, and I'll jump on it when it does.
Yes.
I will nudge you towards that, and that would be a beautiful, you know, I would love to see, people who, like you said, are, sort of prominent figures in society have a chance to come and tell an intimate story on our show because they feel like it would help other people,
Yeah.
I think it would
Yeah.
be a good avenue for that. And I've always thought that.
They won't be the only ones in the room anymore.
No,
Yeah.
I love doing this with you. I'm so glad that we got to do this together, that we work together. If the audience had noticed, last year we took about a 6-month hiatus, and we had such an extensive library that we really wanted to share some of the older episodes with you guys. And part of it was we were re-examining our connection to the podcast and what our motivation was around doing it. We were also moving into a new home. Um, and we were consumed with some life stuff, but we've come back with it. And I think we're finding a pace with it that we really enjoy and love. And um, I think, instead of getting bogged down by the necessities of it, I still think we love, I'll speak for me. I still love the art of storytelling and,
Hmm.
doing it with you. I wouldn't do it with anybody else. If you didn't do this, I don't think I'd do it.
Well, I mean, given that that's your other business, that's not entirely true. But
No, I mean this podcast, the way
oh, this podcast. No, no, no. You wouldn't do this
created.
podcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love doing this podcast with you too, hon. I love the feedback that we get from you guys, our listeners. Thank you for that. Join our Patreon, find us on the Facebook page, the private Facebook group. Find us on Instagram, send us
TikTok.
messages. TikTok. I don't really check our TikTok, do you?
We have a YouTube page that has almost all of this stuff
Yes,
on.
YouTube,
Yeah.
but like for connecting with us, for me anyway, Instagram's probably the best way. Also, the only one pod at gmail.com. We take all our submissions there and you can just send us messages too
We
about
also have a
stuff.
Patreon page. You can come in and be a part of it. And if that
Yeah.
it's a way you can support the podcast, and you can bring us your ideas and have a little closer relationship with Laura and I as creators.
Yep. So thank you for 5 years, you all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank
For
you, hon.
over, I don't know if I said it, but almost over 5 million downloads,
You
which
did not say that.
I don't think, I don't think I ever imagined we could, have 5 million downloads of storytelling. It's really
That is
fantastic.
incredible.
It is. I
Yeah.
love you, honey.
I love you too, hon.
Thank you guys for tuning into The Only One in the Room and our 5-year anniversary. If you need anything, check out the show notes.
We'll see you in another 5.
Thanks, hon.